The void of space held no mercy for the dying ship. The Persistence, humanity's seventh colony vessel, tumbled through the darkness like a broken toy. Its hull had been breached in 3 places, its engines dead, and its life support systems failing one by one. Inside, 2,000 souls clung to hope as oxygen levels dropped toward zero. Captain Park Doyen knew they had less than an hour. "Send the distress signal again," he ordered, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. Alarms wailed. Children cried. The emergency lights cast everything in hellish red. "Sir, we're in Dreeken space," his first officer warned. "They don't respond to human transmissions." "Then we die trying," Doyen replied. "Send it." The Dreeken Empire. Even the name made people afraid throughout the galaxy. They were an ancient race of massive reptilian beings covered in armored scales that shimmered like molten metal. They breathed fire, commanded fleets that could crack planets, and followed honor code that humans barely understood. They also did not care much for other species. But as the Persistence made its final turn into oblivion, something miraculous happened. The void lit up with arriving ships. Sleek, massive vessels that looked like dragons frozen in flight appeared. Their hulls gleamed with strange scales. Their engines burned like captive suns. The Dreeken had answered. 3 days later, aboard the Dreeken flagship Flame of Honor, Queen Risa stood before the massive window, gazing at the human survivors being transferred to medical bays. Even standing still, she radiated power. She was nearly 3 meters tall, her scales a deep crimson shot through veins of gold. Her eyes, vertical slits of burning amber, missed nothing. "How many survived?" she asked without turning. 1,843, replied Commander Teo, her most trusted advisor. Like all Dreeken, his voice rumbled like distant thunder. "The rest were lost before we arrived. And their ship? Beyond repair. The humans have nothing. No home, no resources, no way to sustain themselves." Reese's tail swept slowly across the deck, a sign of deep thought. They were traveling to the Outer Rim colonies, yes? They will not reach them now. The nearest human settlement is 4 months away, and their cryosleep pods are destroyed. Teo paused. "Your Majesty, we cannot support 1,800 humans indefinitely. The Empire's resources are not infinite." "I know," Risa said. "Arrange a meeting with their leaders. We will discuss terms." Captain Doyen entered the Queen's chamber with a mixture of terror and hope. He had seen recordings of Dreeken before, but nothing prepared him for Risa's presence in person. She sat upon a throne of carved black stone, and he felt certain she could kill him with a thought. "Captain Park Doyen," she said, her voice surprisingly calm. "Your people owe the Dreeken Empire their lives." "We do, Your Majesty," Doyen replied, bowing deeply. "We are eternally grateful. Gratitude is acknowledged, but it does not solve practical problems." Risa leaned forward. "Your people need a home. The Empire has worlds within our territory that could support human life. We could help you establish a colony." Hope flared in Doyen's chest. "That would be, we would be forever in your debt." "Yes, you would." Risa's eyes narrowed. "The Dreeken do not give charity, Captain. We honor debts and expect debts to be honored. What can your people offer in return?" Doyen had known this moment would come. He had spent the last 3 days in agonized discussion with the surviving council members. What could a broken colony offer an empire of dragons? "Your Majesty," he began carefully, "among our survivors is an infant, an orphan. His parents died in the breach." Risa's expression did not change, but her tail went still. "This child," Doyen continued, his throat tight, "survived for minutes exposed to vacuum before we sealed his compartment. For minutes. No human should survive that. Yet he did. He is remarkable." "You offer me a child?" Risa's tone was unreadable. "We offer a bridge between our species, Your Majesty, a symbol of alliance, a human raised in Dreeken tradition who could understand both our peoples." Doyen took a breath. "We offer you an heir." The silence stretched like a drawn blade. Every Dreeken in the chamber knew what Captain Doyen did not. Queen Risa's only biological child had died 6 months ago from a genetic plague that ravaged royal bloodlines. The queen had been found weeping over the empty cradle, her grief so powerful that flames had melted the chamber walls. She had no other children, and Draken biology made conceiving again nearly impossible. "Show me the child," Risa said quietly. They brought little Jiho to her in the royal gardens, a vast chamber where glowing plants cast everything in soft blue light. He was wrapped in thermal blankets, his tiny face peaceful in sleep. He could not have been more than a month old. Risa knelt, a gesture that shocked her guards, and carefully took the bundle in her massive claws. Jiho was so small that she could have held 3 of him in one hand. His skin was soft and pale, completely unarmored, fragile beyond belief. He opened his eyes and looked at her. They were dark and curious, showing no fear of the enormous predator holding him. Instead, he made a small cooing sound and reached one tiny hand toward her face. Something in Risa's ancient heart cracked open. "What is his name?" she asked. "Jiho," Captain Doyen replied. "It means wisdom and intelligence." "Jiho," Risa repeated, and the child seemed to respond to her voice. "Do your people truly consent to this? Giving a child to dragons? The alternative is watching all our children starve," Doyen said bluntly. "At least this way, one of them might have a future. And perhaps he can build something neither of our species could build alone." Risa stood slowly, still cradling Jiho. She looked at Doyen with those burning amber eyes. "I accept your offering," she said formally. "From this day forth, the human Jiho shall be known as Prince Jiotar of the Draken Empire. He will be raised as my son, taught our ways, and given all rights of royal blood." Her voice hardened. "And any who threaten him threaten my throne. This I swear." Captain Doyen felt tears streaming down his face. "Thank you, your majesty." That night, in her private chambers, Queen Risa sat with infant Jiho sleeping against her chest. Her scales adjusted their temperature to keep him perfectly warm. She hummed a Draken lullaby, a song of fire and starlight and the long journey home. "You are so small," she whispered, "so fragile. How can I keep you safe in a galaxy of teeth and claws?" Jiho stirred in his sleep, gripping one of her smaller scales with surprising strength. Risa felt that crack in her heart widen into something warm and terrifying. Love. She had not expected a love again, had thought that part of her died with her biological son. But this tiny human, this impossible survivor, had rekindled something she thought lost forever. "I will teach you to be fierce," she promised. "I will teach you honor and strength. And when the galaxy looks at you and sees only a soft human, you will show them the dragon in your heart." Prince Jihotar moved through the training hall with fluid precision, his wooden practice blade whistling through the air. He was small compared to the Draken warriors around him, barely reaching their waists, but what he lacked in size, he made up for in speed. "Again!" roared Master Quan, the weapons instructor. The old Draken scales were scarred from countless battles. Jiho rolled under a sweeping tail strike, came up inside his opponent's guard, and tapped the practice blade against the warrior's throat. The Draken student, twice his size, growled in frustration. "Well done, Prince," Master Quan rumbled. "You fight like water, always finding the gaps." Jiho bowed respectfully, but he caught the muttered words from other students. "Soft skin, no honor in tricks." He had heard worse over the years. 12 years had passed since Queen Risa took him in, and still some Draken refused to accept him. To them, he would always be the human pretender, the outsider playing at being royal. That evening, Queen Risa found him on the palace balcony, staring at the distant lights of New Terra's orbital station. The human colony glowed like a string of pearls against the darkness of space. "Thinking of your birth, people?" she asked, settling her massive form beside him. Even after 12 years, he still marveled at her size and grace. "Sometimes," Jiho admitted. "Do you think they remember me?" "They built a monument to you," Risa said gently. "The child who bridged 2 worlds. You are not forgotten, my son." "I am going to visit them soon," Jiho said. "You approved the request." "I did. It is time you understood both halves of yourself. Risa's tail wrapped protectively around him. But remember, you are my son first. Whatever they say, whatever you feel, you belong here. Jiho leaned against her scaled side, feeling her warmth. I know, Mother. 2 weeks later, Jiho stepped off the shuttle onto New Terra, wearing formal Dreekan robes. Feeling incredibly awkward, the human colonists stared at him. Some looked at him with wonder, some with suspicion. He looked human, but everything else about him was Dreekan. The way he moved, the way he spoke, even the way he held himself radiated the confidence of dragon royalty. Prince Jiho? A young woman approached, her eyes bright with curiosity. She wore an engineer's jumpsuit smudged with grease. I am Hannah. I maintain the colony's power systems. Just, Jiho is fine, he said, grateful for a friendly tone. Not according to protocol. She grinned. Come on, I will show you around. Fair warning. Everyone is going to want to meet the human who became a dragon prince. Over the following days, Hannah became his guide and friend. She showed him human music, introduced him to foods he had never tasted, and taught him jokes that made no sense in Dreekan culture. She explained human customs that felt strange and wonderful. She taught him card games and showed him old Earth movies that the colonists treasured. You are not what I expected, Hannah admitted one evening as they watched the sunset. The stories make you sound. I did not know more alien. I am alien, Jiho said quietly. To humans, I am too Dreekan. To Dreekan, I am too human. I do not fully belong anywhere. Maybe that is your strength, Hannah suggested. You belong to both. That is rare. Before Jiho could respond, alarms blared across the settlement. Security forces rushed past them. Over the loudspeakers, a voice announced a meteor strike on the eastern sector. Jiho ran toward the emergency without thinking, his Dreekan training taking over. He helped pull survivors from collapsed buildings, organized evacuation routes, and coordinated with rescue teams. Hours later, covered in dust and exhausted, he realized the entire colony had been watching him work alongside them as an equal. You could have stayed safe in the command center, Hannah said as they rested. You are a prince. I am also human, Jiho replied. These are my people too. 3 months after returning to the Dreekan palace, Jiho was in the library when Commander Teo found him. There was an assassination attempt on you, Prince, Teo reported grimly. Jiho looked up from his book. What? A bomb planted in your quarters. You were not there. You had fallen asleep in the library. Teo's expression was dark. The would-be assassins were traced to Lord Miho's faction. Lord Miho, a powerful noble who had opposed Jiho's adoption from beginning, calling it an insult to Dreekan bloodlines. Bring Miho before the queen, Jiho said quietly, anger burning in his chest. The confrontation in the throne room became legendary. Lord Miho, a massive silver-scaled Dreekan, stood defiant before Queen Risa. Your Majesty dishonors our entire race by naming a human as heir, he declared. He has no scales, no fire, no true strength. Then you will not mind facing him in combat, Risa said coldly. Prove your claim. Defeat my son, and I will hear your petition. Lose, and you will be exiled. Lord Miho laughed. The soft-skinned child against me? This is barely sport. Jiho stepped forward, his heart pounding, but his face calm. He had learned long ago that Dreekan respected courage above all else. The duel began in the great arena. Miho attacked with overwhelming force, his claws tearing chunks from the stone floor. But Jiho moved like smoke, never where Miho expected. He used every trick Master Quan had taught him. He bent in ways Dreekan could not, moved through spaces their bulk would not allow. When Miho lunged with fire breath, Jiho rolled beneath it and came up behind him. When Miho swung his massive tail, Jiho vaulted over it. He struck at joints, at the gaps between scales, using Miho's own strength against him. The crowd watched in stunned silence as the small human prince danced around the massive dragon lord, landing blow after blow. Finally, with Miho exhausted and off balance, Jiho swept his legs and put his blade to the noble's throat. Yield, Jiho commanded. Miho's eyes blazed with hatred, but he had no choice. I yield. Queen Risa rose from her throne, flames flickering around her jaws. Let all present witness. My son has proven his worth. Any who threaten him answer to me. Lord Miho was exiled that night, but as Jiho stood beside his mother, accepting the bows of court, he knew this would not be the last challenge. Later, in his quarters, he received a message from Hannah. Saw the recording of your duel. That was incredible. Proud of you, Prince. He smiled. Maybe it did belong somewhere after all. In the space between worlds, building bridges neither side could build alone. He was not just human, or just Dreeken. He was both, and that made him unique. That made him strong. The emergency council meeting was chaos. Holographic displays showed infection rates spreading across 6 Dreeken worlds. The genetic plague, the same one that killed Queen Reese's biological heir, had returned more virulent than before. 12,000 infected and climbing, reported Dr. Salmon, the chief medical officer. We do not have enough treatment facilities. The old cure is not working, added a Dreeken scientist. The plague has mutated. Queen Risa sat rigid on her throne, but Jiho saw the fear in her eyes. This disease had taken her first child. She would not let it take her empire. Contact New Terra, Jiho said suddenly. Human geneticists might see patterns we are missing. We need fresh perspectives. The soft skin asked us to beg human for help. Lord Wu Bin sneered from across the chamber. I ask us to use every resource available. Jiho shot back. Or would you prefer to watch your people die out of pride? Queen Risa nodded slowly. Do it. Send for their best scientists. Hannah arrived with a team of human researchers within 2 days. She had become a prominent engineer and had studied biology in her spare time. When she stepped off the shuttle, Jiho felt relief wash over him. It is good to see you, Jiho, she said as they walked to the medical facility, though I wish it were under better circumstances. Can you help us? He asked desperately. She studied the data on her tablet, her brow furrowed. Maybe. Dreeken DNA is incredibly complex, but it is also rigid. It does not adapt quickly. Human DNA is messier, but more flexible. That is why we are immune. Our genetics can handle the virus. So we need to make Dreeken genetics more flexible? Essentially. But that is theoretical. We would need a compatible donor, massive computational power, and time we do not have. Whatever you need, Jiho interrupted. Just tell me. 3 weeks into the crisis, disaster struck. Queen Risa collapsed during a council session. Jiho caught her before her massive body hit the ground, her scales burning with fever. Mother, the queen is infected, Dr. Salmon confirmed grimly. We must quarantine her immediately. No, Risa growled weakly. My people need to see strength. Your people need you alive, Jiho said firmly, though his voice cracked. Let us help you. They moved her to the Royal Medical Wing. Jiho refused to leave her side, even when advisors warned that proximity to the infected was dangerous. He sat beside her massive bed, holding her clawed hand in both of his. Foolish boy, Risa whispered, her voice raspy. Always too brave. I learned from the best, Jiho replied. In her delirium, she spoke truths she had never voiced before. You saved me when I was lost in grief. Gave me reason to live again. Not just an heir. My son. My true son. Jiho felt tears streaming down his face. Then fight, mother. Please fight. Her fever climbed higher. The doctor said she had maybe 3 days left. Hannah burst into the research lab, where Jiho was desperately working on data models with the scientists. We found something. Human genetic adaptability can be encoded into a treatment, but it needs a living donor to calibrate properly. Use me, Jiho said immediately. Jiho, the procedure is experimental. It could kill you. It is going to kill my mother if we do nothing. His voice was steel. Use me. Dr. Salmon tried to protest, but Jiho was already climbing onto the medical platform. We do not have time to argue. Start the procedure. The process took 8 hours. They extracted samples from Jiho, broke them down to base genetic code, and synthesized a hybrid treatment. Jiho felt like his veins were on fire, his vision blurring as machines whirred around him. Pain shot through every nerve in his body. Halfway through, alarm screamed. His heart had stopped. "We are losing him," Dr. Salmon shouted. Hannah grabbed the medical team. "You will not let him die. Not after everything." They revived him, but his body was failing. They had to stop twice more when his vital signs crashed. Each time, they barely brought him back. When Geo finally woke, Hannah was there, her face pale and tear-streaked. "You almost did not make it. Your heart stopped 3 times. "Did it work?" he croaked, his throat raw. "They are administering it to the Queen now. We will know within hours." Geo tried to sit up, but could not. His body felt like it had been torn apart and put back together wrong. Every muscle screamed in protest. "Rest," Hannah said gently. "You have done enough." But he could not rest. Not until he knew. Queen Risa opened her eyes 2 days later, the fever broken. She saw Geo asleep in a chair beside her bed, bandages covering his arms, his face gaunt from the ordeal. Medical monitors beeped softly, tracking his weak vital signs. "This foolish, brave boy," she murmured, reaching out to touch his hair gently with one claw. When Geo woke, she was watching him with those amber eyes full of emotion he had never seen before. "You risked everything for me," she said. "You are my mother," he replied simply. "That is what family does." The treatment spread across the infected worlds within days. Thousands were saved. The plague that terrorized the Draken Empire for generations finally retreated, defeated by the combination of human adaptability and Draken determination. When Queen Risa addressed her empire from the palace balcony a week later, Prince Jiho stood beside her. He was still weak, still recovering, but he stood straight and proud. The Draken people roared their approval, not for a human pretender, but for their prince who had saved them. "You have proven yourself beyond doubt," Risa told him privately that night. "Not with weapons or fire, but with sacrifice and love. You are truly my son." Geo embraced her as best he could, his small arms barely reaching around her massive neck. For the first time in his life, he felt completely at peace with who he was. He was not just human, or just Draken. He was both, and that was his greatest strength. But peace, he would soon learn, never lasted long in the galaxy. Dark clouds were gathering on the horizon, and war was coming. The Krythax swarm struck without warning. They were an insectoid species, all hard-shell armor and hive-minded aggression. They had been watching the Draken Empire's moment of weakness during the plague, and now they attacked. Border worlds went dark one by one. New Terra's orbital defense grid lit up with warnings. Krythax ships entering the system, Hannah transmitted urgently. "We are evacuating civilians to bunkers, but we cannot hold them off alone." "We are coming," Geo promised, already running toward the command center. Queen Risa stood before a holographic display of the battlefield, her commanders around her. Red markers showed Krythax forces attacking 7 systems simultaneously. They had planned this carefully, waiting for the perfect moment. "The Krythax have been watching us," Commander Teo said grimly. "They knew we were weak from the plague." "We need to combine our forces," Geo said, breathing hard from a sprint. "Human tactics with Draken firepower. They will not expect cooperation." "You propose joint command?" Teo asked skeptically. "I propose survival," Jiho replied. "Separately, we might fall. Together, we are unstoppable." Risa studied her son for a long moment, then nodded. "Prince Jiho will command the joint fleet. Any who refuse to follow his orders will answer to me personally." The battle for New Terra was fierce. Krythax fighters swarmed like locusts, their weapons punching through shields. But Jiho had studied human military history, tactics the Draken never used. All ships dealt to formation. He commanded from the flagship's bridge. Human vessels provide cover fire. Draken ships wait for my mark. Now! The Draken ships emerged from behind the smaller human vessels, catching the Krythax in a devastating crossfire. The aliens had not expected such coordination between 2 species. "They are breaking formation," Hannah reported from her station. She had insisted on joining the fleet as a technical advisor. "Press the advantage," Jiho ordered. "Do not give them time to regroup." But as the fleet pushed forward, an urgent message arrived that chilled Jiho's blood. "Your Majesty, a palace guard transmitted. His voice panicked. Lord Wubin has seized a throne room with his personal forces. He declares Prince Jiho unfit to lead and calls for the queen to step down. It is a coup, Jiho realized, his stomach dropping. While we are at war, Wubin makes his move. That traitor, Teo roared. We must return immediately. No, Risa said calmly, though flames danced at her nostrils. Commander, continue the defense. Jiho and I will handle Wubin. They took a fast shuttle back to the palace, leaving Teo in command of the fleet. The journey felt like an eternity. Jiho's mind raced. How many warriors did Wubin have? How many would they have to fight through? They found Lord Wubin in the throne room, surrounded by 50 armed warriors. He stood before the obsidian throne, his dark scales gleaming with arrogance. Queen Risa, he said mockingly, come to surrender your crown peacefully? I have come to end your treachery, Risa replied, her voice dropping to a dangerous growl. You have already lost. Wubin gestured to holographic displays, showing the battles. While you waste resources defending humans, I have been in contact with the Krythax. They promised me the throne in exchange for intelligence on your fleet movements. Jiho felt rage burning through him like fire. You betrayed your own people, gave the enemy our military secrets. I saved them from your pollution. Wubin roared. The Dreekan Empire was mighty before humans arrived. You and that human spawn have weakened us. Then prove it, Jiho said coldly, drawing his blade. Single combat. You claim I have weakened the Empire? Defeat me before the court. Wubin laughed, a harsh sound like grinding stone. Gladly. I will enjoy tearing you apart, soft skin. The duel was vicious. Wubin was larger, stronger, and fought with the fury of a zealot. His claws tore chunks from the marble floor. His tail swept like a battering ram. He fought to kill, not just to win. But Jiho had learned something over years of being underestimated. Every disadvantage could become an advantage. When Wubin lunged with his full weight behind a strike, Jiho simply was not there. He moved like water, like shadow, like everything Dreekan were not. He struck at joints in Wubin's armor, at weak points between scales. He used Wubin's own momentum against him, redirecting powerful strikes into empty air. Master Quan had taught him well. Stand still and fight. Wubin bellowed in frustration. Why? Jiho replied, ducking under another wild swing. You're doing fine losing on your own. The watching warriors murmured. Some even chuckled. Wubin's face twisted with humiliation and rage. He charged with reckless abandon, all technique forgotten. Jiho waited until the last moment, then dropped and rolled. Wubin could not stop his momentum. He crashed into a stone pillar with bone-crushing force. Before Wubin could recover, Jiho was there, his blade pressed against the traitor's throat. Yield, Jiho commanded. Never to a human. I am Dreekan, Jiho interrupted, his voice ringing through the chamber. By choice, by training, by love. I am more Dreekan than you, because I understand what you never could. Strength comes from unity, not isolation. Queen Risa stepped forward, her presence filling the room. Lord Wubin, you are stripped of all rank and title. You will be exiled to the prison worlds for your betrayal. Take him away. As guards dragged Wubin away, still struggling and cursing, Jiho turned to face the assembled court. His blade was still in his hand, his chest heaving from exertion. Any others who doubt my loyalty? He asked, his voice steady and strong. Step forward now. Silence filled the throne room. Then, slowly, every Dreekan present lowered their heads in respect. Even those who had been Wubin's allies bent their necks, acknowledging Jiho's victory. Commander Teo's voice crackled over the communication system. Your Majesty, Prince Jiho, the Krythax are retreating. Without Wubin's intelligence, they cannot predict our movements. We are driving them back. Jiho allowed himself a small smile. They had won today, both on the battlefield and at home. But he knew this was just the beginning. The Krythax would return, and next time they would be ready. Queen Risa placed a clawed hand on his shoulder. You have done well, my son. Today you prove yourself not just a warrior, but a true leader. Jiho looked up at her, this massive dragon who had raised him with love and honor. I had a good teacher. Prince Jiho stood before the Council of Stars. Representatives from 15 different species gathered in the Grand Assembly Hall. He was 24 now, confident and composed, wearing robes that blended Dreekan and human design. The galaxy stands at a crossroads, he said, his voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. We can continue as isolated powers, fighting over borders and resources. Or we can build something greater, a true alliance based on mutual respect and cooperation. Pretty words from a human playing at being dragon, sneered the Valorian ambassador, a tall being with silver skin and cold eyes. Jiho smiled slightly. I am human. I am also Dreekan. I am proof that identity is not limited by birth. The question is, are you brave enough to evolve? Queen Risa watched from her throne, pride evident in her amber eyes. Her son had grown into a leader beyond her wildest hopes. That evening, in the royal gardens where glowing plants cast soft blue light, Hannah found Jiho staring at the stars. She had become the head of New Terra's Technology Council, but still made time to visit. Nervous about tomorrow? She asked, settling beside him on the stone bench. Terrified, Jiho admitted, Mother is stepping down. The coronation ceremony is massive. What if I am not ready? You saved both our species from plague and war, Hannah said gently. You are ready. I am asking you to stay, Jiho said suddenly, turning to face her. As my advisor, my partner, my... He trailed off uncertain. Hannah smiled, her eyes warm. Your consort? Jiho, are you proposing a political marriage? I am proposing love, he corrected. The politics just happened to work out nicely. She kissed him then, under the bioluminescent flowers that reminded him of the first night he spent in these gardens as an infant. Yes, she whispered. The coronation ceremony blended traditions from both species. Dreekan nobles stood alongside human diplomats. Representatives from a dozen other species watched with interest. The grand hall was filled to capacity, and millions more watched via holographic transmission across the galaxy. Jiho took his vows in both Dreekan and human languages, his voice strong and clear. I swear to protect all who dwell within these borders, regardless of species or origin. I swear to honor the Dreekan way, while embracing the wisdom of humanity. I swear to build bridges where others see only walls. Queen Risa, now to be known as Queen Mother, placed a crown upon his head. It was a masterwork, forged from both Dreekan metals and human alloys, symbolizing the unity he represented. Rise, King Jiotar, she said, and there were tears in her ancient eyes. My son, my pride, my legacy. The assembled crowd roared approval. Voices, roars, clicks, and sound from a dozen species, all united in celebration. It was a sound never heard before in the galaxy, a chorus of unity that echoed through the hall. 3 months later, Hannah entered Jiho's private chambers with news. She was smiling, her hand resting on her abdomen in a gesture that made his heart skip. We are pregnant, she said softly. Jiho's eyes went wide. He crossed to her, gathered her in his arms, and laughed with pure joy. Our child will be something the galaxy has never seen. Human, but raised with Dreekan honor, Hannah agreed, a bridge to the next generation. Queen Mother Risa, when told the news, wept openly, something no one had seen her do in decades. A grandchild, she marveled, her voice thick with emotion. The family grows. 1 year later, in the royal gardens, little Nari tottered on unsteady legs, chasing after young Dreekan hatchlings who were teaching her to roar. It came out as more of a squeak, but the hatchlings cheered anyway, their tails wagging with delight. King Jiho watched from a bench, Hannah beside him, Queen Mother Risa's massive form behind him like a protective mountain. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if you had said no? Jiho asked his mother, if you had refused to take me in? Every day, Risa admitted. And every day I thank the stars that I said yes. You saved me, Jiho. You saved all of us. We saved each other, Jiho corrected. He looked out over the city where Dreekan architecture mingled with human designs, where streets bustled with dozen species living in harmony. Markets sold goods from across the galaxy. Children of different species played together in parks. Artists collaborated on works that blended cultures in beautiful ways. The Terran Dreekan coalition had grown beyond anyone's expectations. Other species had joined, attracted by the promise of equality and cooperation. New technologies emerged from combined research. Medical advances saved lives across species barriers. Trade routes flourished. Art and culture blossomed in ways neither species could have achieved alone. And at the center of it all was a human who had been raised by dragons. "I used to think I belonged nowhere," Geo said quietly, watching Nari laugh as a hatchling gently lifted her onto its back for a ride. Too human for Dreekan, too Dreekan for humans. But I was wrong. I belong everywhere. We all do. Nari squealed with delight as the hatchling walked carefully around the garden, other young ones following in a parade. Human children and Dreekan young played together without fear or prejudice, seeing only friends. They did not care about scales or skin, about fire breath or soft voices. They simply saw each other. "This," Geo said, gesturing to the scene before them, "is what I was meant to build. Not a human kingdom or a Dreekan empire, but something new, something better." "You have done well, my son," Risa said, her tail wrapping around Botham and Hannah in a protective embrace. "Your birth parents gave you life. I gave you a home. But you gave us all a future." As the twin suns set over the palace, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, King Geo thought about the scared infant who had been offered to a dragon queen all those years ago. That child had been given a choice to see his dual heritage as a weakness or a strength. He had chosen strength, and in doing so, he had changed the galaxy forever. Far away, on New Terra, a monument stood in the central square. It showed a human child held in dragon claws, looking up without fear. The inscription read, "From two worlds came one heart. From one heart came hope. From hope came the future." And in the palace gardens, as stars began to emerge in the darkening sky, a family gathered. Human, Dreekan, and the new generation that belonged to both. They were home. They were whole. They were the future. Nari's laughter rang through the garden, pure and joyful, as she played with her Dreekan friends. She would grow up in a galaxy where such friendships were normal, where species barriers had begun to dissolve, where cooperation replaced conflict. Queen Mother Risa hummed the same lullaby she had sung to infant Geo so many years ago, a song of fire and starlight and the long journey home. But now the journey had reached its destination. A human raised by dragons had united the stars, and the galaxy would never be the same. King Geo held his wife close, watched his daughter play, and felt his mother's warmth surrounding them all. This was what love looked like. This was what family meant. Not blood or species or tradition, but choice and sacrifice and the courage to believe in something greater.